Hi, thank you for the introduction. So yeah, today I'm going to speak about a project that was performed between our group, the Edinburgh Complex Fluids Partnership, and Hyaltech, that it's a company that is just based outside of Edinburgh and belongs to Zeiss on optimizing the flow behavior of some of the products that they produce that are ophthalmic viscosurgical devices. Just to start, I'm going to introduce our group, see who we are and what we do. So our group is called Edinburgh Complex Fluids Partnership. We are based on the School of Physics and Astronomy, and we are basically a knowledge exchange group that works as a dedicated team of, now we are 6, but we are going to be 7 from the beginning of next week, that just work in industrial projects with industrial partners. We have worked in the past 12 years with small companies, but also with international companies. And our projects can range from short feasibility studies to collaborative research projects. While we are based on the School of Physics and Astronomy, we also collaborate with other schools within the university, like the School of Engineering, Chemistry, or Biological Science, which opens our portfolio of techniques that we can use, and also the fundamental understanding we can bring to a project. So, and what do we actually work with? So, as the name says, we are the Edinburgh Complex Fluids Partnership. So we work with complex fluids that can also be called soft matter, or in lay terms, we can say it's goo. We all have them around our house all the time. Most of the foods that you eat are going to be complex fluids. Most of the products that you use, for example, when you're having a shower, are complex fluids, but they can also be found in plenty of medical applications. So those fluids are usually, we like to say that they are liquids with bits in it, and bits can be particles or can be polymers, even microbials, but also smaller particles that can actually help the mixture of two different fluids or surfactants. We usually work in the length scale between the micro or the nanometer to the bulk, and we try to basically support innovation on products and process through fundamental understanding on physics. So the company that we worked a few years back, that is a biomedical company, is Hyaltech, and they make these fluids that are called ophthalmic viscosurgical devices, and they are used in eye fluid surgery. So one of the surgeries that they are usually used is cataract surgery, that it's actually the most performed surgery around the world. And so in a very simple way, for example, on cataract surgery, the lens, that is the yellow part here, needs to be replaced. So if the doctor would perform the surgery without using any extra fluid to actually fill the front of the eye, the moment you remove the lens, all of this part of the eye, that it's the anterior chamber of the eye, would collapse, and then it would be much more difficult to actually inject the new lens on the eye. So that's the role of these fluids. They are injecting the eye at the beginning of the surgery, and there are two different kinds of fluids. One is kind of cohesive, because the main goal of that fluid is to keep the shape of the eye the moment that you remove the lens. And the other one is called dispersive, that has the role to protect the cells in the front of the eye, because if they get damaged, then you are saving a problem and creating another one, which is not ideal. And then after you inject the new lens, basically those two fluids need to be completely removed from the eye, because if for some reason they are not completely removed, our body cannot actually remove it itself, which then can cause some other issues, like it increases the intraocular pressure of the eye, which then is a cause for other diseases like glaucoma. So again, that's why they need to be removed properly, because otherwise you fix a problem, you create another one, which is not ideal. So as I mentioned, those fluids need to be injected on the eye, need to keep the space or protect the cells, and then need to be removed. So they need to go through large deformations and a different kind of deformations during the process. So when they are in the eye, they basically go to what we call a shear deformation. So the technique, well, rheology is basically the science that studies the flow of matter. In our group, we are very good at doing rheology. So, and there are different kinds that happen during the surgical process. So when the fluids are inside the eye, they mostly undergo what we call the shear flow. When they are inserted in the eye and removed, they go what we call as extensional flow. So when the company contacted our group, they had a few questions that they would like to know if they could be answered and if we could actually be the people that could actually answer those questions. So the first one was about if they could properly understand the flow properties of the fluids that were required at each part of the surgical procedure, especially in terms of shear deformations and extensional deformations. They were not sure if all of those properties could actually be properly or accurately measured, so they were wondering if that was possible. They also wanted to know if, based on that knowledge, it was possible to make predictions on how the fluids would behave and how could we actually incorporate that knowledge in designing new products. As I mentioned before, OVD is basically a soft matter product. We consider ourselves experts on soft matter and in rheology, so it was a good start for a collaboration, and so we had a project with this company to try to measure the properties of their fluids. So without entering in many details about the science, because most of the information is confidential, of course, we divided the project in two different parts. The first one, we actually went through characterize their products. So they have around 10 products. Some of them are what we called the cohesive OVDs, some of them are the dispersive ones, but they all have slightly different concentrations and different materials in it. So what we want to do, it was do a full flow characterization of those fluids through all kind of deformations that you can imagine and levels of deformations. We measure some of the properties that, again, I don't think I'm going to enter onto the details of it because that would probably take too long to explain. But we measure, for example, when the viscosity of the fluids is key, when the elasticity is key, when you need a combination of both, and how can you actually make fluids that are either more elastic at some point, more viscous at other points. We build all of that knowledge based on their fluids. We know which ones, because of doctors' feedback, which ones perform better, which ones they don't like it as much. So it was based on the information, the scientific information that we gathered, we could start making correlations, why some perform better than others. So in the second part of the project, we basically map new solutions. We made new solutions based on the understanding that we got from the first part. And we tried to see if we could actually make some of them within the space that we thought it was ideal for each parameter that we've measured, like viscoelasticity, relaxation time under extensional, just elastic behavior at some point, mostly viscous at other points. And we successfully create some solutions that we believe that they had an improved viscoelastic properties. It was actually funny because I think one of the things that happens when you work with companies, sometimes it's difficult to translate the scientific language, or it's difficult to understand. While we worked very well with the company on that, they were complaining that then it's quite difficult for them to translate that information to the doctors when they start talking about viscosity or elasticity. So one of the things that we did on that time was use one of the devices that actually doctors use in surgery, and with a small model, show how they can be, for example, this video is about how can they be removed from the eye, so that the company then could actually show this to doctors, and it would help them to explain why some of the fluids could perform better than the others. So, well, we measured the success of this project based on how happy the company was in the end, so we have some sentence from the company here. So they basically say that a greater understanding of the flow properties helped them with the regulatory submissions. But it's also that, for example, there are equipments that they didn't have access, and they probably didn't even think that they were important to measure the properties of something that they gain access for working with us. They are currently working on designing a new family of fluids that hopefully they are going to be able to put it on the market in the next few years. But they also say that while the project was not focused on manufacturing, that the knowledge that they gain also helped to actually them improve their manufacturing. And while I cannot share the value, they actually have saved quite a a good amount of money per year just through improvement on their manufacturing. And just to finalize, well, there's always room for improvement. There's probably no perfect product on the markets. There's always room to make it better. So we still have 2 new collaborations with them. One is funded by the Royal Society and the other one from the Edinburgh Innovations Through AM Day. And we have another collaboration under discussion with the company. So I think I've run out of time, so thank you very much. And if you want to learn more about complex fluids, we also have a stand outside.